My journey in Stockton Multistyle Escrima. Welcome back to the Shawn Show. I've recently embarked on a new journey. Well, it's sort of a new journey, but it's more of a continuation of my journey. As many of you know, I've been in the martial arts since I was 8, and I've studied various different martial arts, but I'm not going to go into that today. You can look at this video and my other videos to hear more about that. I've trained in other FMA styles in the past, and I've enjoyed them. So this is not to take away from them, but to speak about who Stockton Multistyle is specifically. I recently returned from an extended weekend trip to Stockton, California. But I need to give a little bit of background information first. Last year, I invited my longtime friend and martial artist, Chris LaCava, to teach a seminar at my school, Lone Star Karate. That was in March of 2023. Before we go any further, please take a look at his channel and subscribe to it. I linked it here. So Chris comes into Houston to teach at my school like he does each and every year and has been doing so for about 15 years. This time he asked to teach some FMA, some Filipino martial arts. As always, I let Chris teach whatever he wants because I've come to trust his judgment. So he comes into town and his seminar consisted of various FMA drills and everyone really enjoyed it. He told me that it was from Stockton Multistyle. I knew that Chris had been training with them for several years, but I didn't really pay attention to it because, well, he had trained in other FMA systems in the past, but this time was different. He said that this group was different from the others and that I would enjoy hanging out with him. The next day, Chris and I trained some of the basic techniques and concepts from Stockton Multistyle, and I really enjoyed it. I told him that I wanted to start training with him, and he said that I should reach out to June Gotico, who is the main instructor in Stockton Multistyle. I sent him an email to inquire about Stockton Multistyle, and he was very gracious and humble in his response. He was excited that I wanted to train and would give me anything that I needed to start training. He added that if I needed to do Zoom classes, just to let him know. He also sent me all of the curriculum sheets and told me I could start training from the videos on YouTube. All of his curriculum is there and for everyone to see. I've never had a main instructor, a master of a style, be so humble and gracious to me before. He was exactly how Chris had said. So I trained some of the basics over the next few months and decided to visit South Carolina. He was bringing in the guys from Stockton to train. Also, Chris had been training 2 guys for a few years who were going to take their graduation test that weekend. So I went to South Carolina. They taught me some drills and we hit sticks. And at this point, not much different than what I expected from other places. Then I was invited to watch Locke and Greg take their graduation test. Wow, it was pretty damn intense. There were lots of drills, but the strikes were hard and fast. It was brutal. Both of them had got hit hard, but they kept going. Several bumps and bruises later, and they were graduates. To top it all off, all the guys from Stockton were great guys. They were friendly, and they would teach and train with me all weekend. And even better, Terry and Robert killed it in the kitchen. The food was spectacular. I was in. So I went back home with a better understanding and insight on what Stockton Multistyle is. So I continue to train at home and with my daughters, and I taught a few basic techniques to my students at my school. Over the next year, I continued to train and reached out to Chris a few times to critique me. Then I booked my trip to Stockton, California. So it's the end of June and I'm going to Stockton, the birthplace of American Filipino martial arts. For those that don't know, Stockton became home of many Filipinos in the early 1900s. They were brought to the US to tend crops and work. Many settled in Stockton. In the mid-1900s, around 1960, several Filipinos instructors started teaching their FMA styles in Stockton and the surrounding areas. And I'm sure I'm butchering the history, but just realize it's the birthplace of Filipino martial arts here in the US. And I was excited to go and see it. So I flew in on Thursday, June 20th, 2024. I landed around noon, and Terry Joven and his son Ramel picked me up from the airport. He drove me back to his house, and we grabbed a beer, a Stockton Multistyle tradition. Terry started working with me on roof blocks, which is the first and really the most important block in Stockton Multistyle. Chris and Philip showed up, and we worked a few other drills throughout that afternoon and into the evening. Gene and Inez came by, and we all went to eat and have a few drinks. The weekend was off to a great start. Friday came quickly. We woke up early, Terry made some breakfast, and asked Ramel, his son, to take me through several blocks from angle 1. At noon, Terry had to leave and drop me off at his sister's house, Michelle, down the street. Chris and Phil came over again, and we all trained angle 1 and angle 2. This lasted until about 6 p.m. when June got off work and came and picked up Chris and I. We went to Shogun for dinner and then went over to his house to end the night. On Saturday, we headed to the annual Stockton Multistyle gathering. Many of the students and instructors from all over California showed up to train. On top of that, several well-known masters of Escrima came out to train and teach. Afterwards, we enjoyed a great lunch from Terry Hoven again. We drank a few drinks, and then we went back to June's house to train with Brooks, who's a multi-style instructor from San Diego. June helped me with a few Sombrata variations while they trained Espadilla Daga. We ended the night off with some pizza and beers. On Sunday morning, June told me to be ready about 10 a.m. to train. His wife Mahal made a traditional Filipino breakfast for me. It was awesome. We went to Terry's house and started training in the park across the street. June taught me several Lagomano drills, and other instructors started to show up. Each instructor would take turns training with me in each of the various drills. June then taught me a cruzada block, various cruzada blocks from angles 1 through 5. Again, each instructor took turns feeding me to help strengthen my cruzada blocking. To finish up the cruzada blocks, June showed me the need to train good technique. He grabbed a stick and he asked if I was ready. I put up my sticks in front of me in a ready position. I answered yes. And then in an instant, my left stick was out of my hand and flying off to the side. He said, "I thought you were ready." Literally, I never saw the strike. I never had time to react. His strike came down right in front of my face and hit my stick with so much force that it knocked it out of my hand. It was unbelievable. Then as soon as I realized what happened, Tommy Haron, the son of the late great Leo Haron, the founder of Haron Bahalana, says, "Shawn, why's your stick on the ground? Pick it up." So I went and grabbed it, and June started to strike angles 1 through 5. He slowed down his strikes so I could block them, and I was able to follow it up with some Senawali defense. It was crazy intense. The last drill of the day was Defundo. Each instructor attacked me, starting with 1 strike, then progressed to 1 and 2 strikes, then the 3 strikes. I was wearing lacrosse gloves, which saved my hands from breaking, but I still ended up with lots of bruises. You might be able to even see them here. At 2:30, over 4 hours later, my first real training in Stockton Multistyle was over. It was so intense, to say the least. I didn't expect it. I started training that morning, thinking I would learn a few more techniques to bring back home to train. But today would be different. Today would show me what separates Stockton Multistyle from everybody else. They handed me a beer, and I had the rest of the day to ponder what had just occurred. Terry called us from across the street to enjoy some lunch, and we sat and talked until late in the evening. The next morning, June brought me to the airport after having some breakfast, and it was over just like that. I was on my way back home. The whole day, I thought about the previous day's training. My body was tired and beaten, but my mind and spirit was ready to train. I was sore from my legs through my body and into my hands. My legs were feeling the stances and the quick movements of having to evade the fast and powerful shots. My core was sore, and just from the sheer amount of cardio that the training expected from me, as well as a few angle 3 and 4 shots that I really couldn't get to. My upper back and lats were sore from the roof blocks, from the strong angle 1s and 2s. More sore than anything else was my arms and hands. My forearms and my hands ache. Having to hold those sticks crashing down on me truly fatigued my arms like I've never had before. Not to mention the bruises on my arms and hands from not being able to block the heavy and fast strikes the way I was supposed to. So I stand here the following day, 6 days later, having went through probably the most eye-opening martial arts experience since I was 18, taking my Shodan test in the Zendokai. Now to conclude this video, I want to address 3 possibilities of what you're probably thinking. You might be thinking, wow, that sounds amazing. I want to be part of that. I would say to you to reach out to June or anyone in Stockton Multistyle to inquire about starting your training. Second, you might be thinking that it sounds brutal and too much and that they shouldn't have pushed me that hard. I would say to you, at no time did I feel unsafe. June and all of the instructors were giving me the exact amount of challenge that I could handle and that would push me. That is something I've never seen in any other martial arts system ever. The amount of skill of every instructor is top notch. Lastly, you might be saying, that didn't seem all that bad. I would say to you then, do it. Call up June and ask to be put through some of their training. I'm sure he would do it. Now, I have to get back to training. I have to get ready for a group of Stockton Multistyle guys coming in September. If you're wanting to come, make sure you check with me and come and attend the seminar. It's going to be a blast.